What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. When you have a 1-7 team as a New York sports team, and your general manager is generally considered safe, their movements and their actions are going to be watched by everyone, right? They literally jump towards the top of the list of some of the most important people in the world. And obviously I'm being a bit hyperbolic here, but it still rings pretty true. And Darren Muji's no different, right? He's going to be tracked left, right, and center when it comes to what games he's showing up to, what's he eating for dinner, who's he having conversations with, right? And so with the Jets being linked to Fernando Mendoza, arguably the top quarterback in this upcoming 2026 NFL draft class, it makes sense that the world would go nuts with Darren Muji and company being cited at the Indiana versus Penn State game, right? In fact, it was mentioned that the brain trust for the New York Jets showed up when we want to talk about the or the remake, the facelift of the front office over there. So couple of things here, right? One, it's been marked that our brain trust or heavy contingent showed up, right? Who is that? It's Darren Muji himself, of course, our general manager, senior football advisor, Rick Spielman, and then two of the top scouts or directors for the New York Jets. And so I don't know if it was two of the top scouts and two of the directors, one of both, whatever it looks like. But the names that would come to mind would be Dom Green, who's our senior personnel who's our senior personnel of college, and not quite a director role, but I'm assuming he's kind of like the top scout. Jason Mandolisi, who's our director of college scouting, and it could be Robbie Patton, our director of player personnel, and I would assume if he's coming, it's just from the understanding of roster construction, right? And who else may be at the game that could be of interest to us. But outside of that, this isn't even the first large collection or appearance from Darren Muji and company when it comes to Fernando Mendoza. This is already the third appearance in person that Darren Muji has showed up to scout this particular guy, and it makes a ton of sense, right? If you're going to be one of the first teams picking in the draft, whether you end up being able to find your way picking first overall, or you end up falling in love with this guy so much you're willing to, make a leapfrog a couple of teams in order to secure his services. Once again, I would kind of hate to have to package up a lot of these resources that we picked, but if you feel like you're going to nail the quarterback position, it's a lot more understandable to package some of those assets and still understand you have a lot more, still understand there's trade back opportunities to recover even more and bounce back. And, hopefully we don't dip too much into the 2027 capital, but nonetheless, right? Unless you have a team really just having the nerve to try to hold you at ransom, right? It feels like the Jets will pick top 5, probably land where we're at now, let's just say third overall. And you have the Titans, who don't need a quarterback, but we've seen crazier things. And the Saints, who technically you could argue shouldn't need a quarterback after picking Tyler Shugg pretty early, but can't be ruled out, right? Ideally, you only have to jump up once depending on what happens with the Saints, and it feels like somehow they may be even worse off than the Jets are. But still, that whole trade debate on if that's even a reality or if the Jets will be in control of their own destiny with the draft, that's a later conversation. One of the things that intrigues me the most about Mendoza is a lot of the pro comparisons or the comps, and just a lot of the thought process around how he approaches the game, how he plays it, some of the nuances and such. One, you gotta love the situation he's in, right? Indiana, not known to be a powerhouse in the football ranks, not known to be a team that just owns their conference or anything of the sort, but he has them on a 10-game winning streak, undefeated, and arguably the top team in all of college football, although I believe they're ranked number 2 right now. But when you look at Matt Miller's breakdown, for example, here's where a lot of the connective tissue kind of builds for the New York Jets, and why you'll see them probably get mocked for Mendoza if he's ever on the board when they're able to pick in mock drafts 10 out of 10 times. He says he's really good at layering passes. He shows touch accuracy. He's got like a compact, snappy release. He's a little bit more Jared Goff in terms of his arm talent. And I think his mechanics are so clean that there's not a lot of wasted motion. He's not a runner. So overall, the takeaway there would be the Jared Goff comp, right? And I've heard this from like Connor Rogers. I've heard it from Matt Miller now. I've heard it from, guys like Connor Hughes. I'm hearing it from guys like Bengal and stuff like that that's out there. A lot of people feel like Jared Goff is a true comp for this guy. And who did Eric Glenn, who did Tanner Engstrand have, right? I understand they've kind of evolved a little bit in their thinking of ideally falling in love with like a dual threat quarterback. But if you have a pocket passer and you feel like he can really exceed mentally and athletically at that position in the current climate and landscape, I know it's kind of a dying breed, if you will, but you're seeing guys like Matthew Stafford still get it done, right? Consistent 2, 3, 4 touchdown performances, just methodically beating guys up and down the field, and he's making it happen while, maybe rushing 2 or 3 times a game. It's still a possibility as long as you can build that strong team around him. It also helps our fact that, I think ESPN does this a couple times throughout the year, right? But there was a poll earlier in the year before the season officially kicked off when they voted for who would be the top quarterback drafted in the 2026 draft. And that looks completely different from the recent one they did, where Mendoza was that pick. In fact, I think he had 13 of like the 26 potential votes that were out there. I think Ty Simpson had 6, and then no other quarterback had more than 2 or 3. And so it really lets you know that the buy-in around Mendoza is extremely high. There's a huge belief in him as of this time, and I can't wait to really get into my breakdowns of these potential targets for the Jets, because with Mendoza, it seems like there's a lot to love at the surface, but there's a lot more hidden deep down. It's not like this is a guy that's just been consistently starting and all that as well, and is just finding this 1-year run. So as I see little things here and there, I'm kind of tucking it away, storing it in the database, and trying to find what the true story for this particular player is going to look like. But for now, this isn't world-shaking news. It makes all the sense in the world that we're going to do a million years of research and try to condense that into 6 months for the New York Jets on a lot of these guys. But Mendoza seems like it's about as clean as it possibly gets. And who knows? For a lot of the people that are saying wait till the 2027 draft, the argument really is, well, what do you do in 2026, right? You can't just punt on the quarterback position again, or say, hey, maybe we build up the roster this year and Justin Fields succeeds a little bit more and all this kind of stuff. Justin Fields isn't going to bring hope, for one. 2, there at the very least needs to be a challenge, a competition for that number 1 QB role going into 2026, so you can take advantage of trying to build up the foundation if that's the route that the New York Jets want to go. And to be honest, if you take the inverse of the argument for waiting for a quarterback in 2027, let's say you land a Mendoza, or let's just say it is someone else, Ty Simpson, whoever else ends up being the pick there. If that quarterback looks good in year 1 and you walk away with like a Drake May type sensation for who we drafted, then 2027 all of a sudden becomes a different magnitude, right? Now you're talking about, you're probably not picking that high, right, if you say that you hit on this guy, but nonetheless, you're talking about the opportunity to go out there and pick all of these elite tier wide receivers, tight ends that'll be coming out, maybe building up the offensive line even further. Nonetheless, you no longer need a quarterback. And so if you end up picking high, then again, you sell off your top pick for a king's ransom. But 2, you go out there and you can get you a Jeremiah Smith and all of these other guys that are going to come out. And, at that point, you're probably talking about surrounding Mendoza or someone else with 5 or 6 first round talents on the offensive side of the ball that can help him out, and probably mostly weapons, assuming that we look to build up depth and try to find some starters in the mid to later rounds on the offensive line with where we're at right now. So I'm just curious what the thought process will be and the strategy behind how we look to approach this thing. But don't forget, one of the funnest parts about having Aaron Glenn and Tanner Engstrand and even Rick Spielman and just kind of this collective of new talent in the coaching and front office staff is from the Broncos realm of things and the Lions realm of things. Both of these guys aren't necessarily tied to doing the, let's say, the consensus pick type formula, right? It's definitely best player approach and when it makes sense and all this kind of stuff, but there's nothing saying that they won't go outside of the box and maybe look to, pick a running back high at certain points or whatever. And I'm talking about over the next 2 drafts, but there's not a foregone conclusion that they're just going to go the obvious route or the obvious path when it comes to the draft, especially considering whatever they end up doing in free agency. But things are going to continue to rapidly change here. I'm excited. Hopefully we'll hear more, news come out about other quarterbacks we've been visiting and stuff like that. But let me know what you guys think. Mendoza, how high on him would you be if we don't have to trade up to get him? Or even if we do, are you sold enough to think that he can legitimately become the franchise guy for the Jets? And I'll catch you guys again. Appreciate the love and support as always. Peace.